Are you gonna listen to the move?
I've been out the loop since '09.
Yeah, I'll be back. I'll be back to get at that, though.
Check this. I'm at the motherfucking house last night. Guess what the fuck I see?
What you see?
Shamika, what's up?
Fuck you think you fucking with? It's Maxwell, bitch.
Fuck you in them shoes.
Bitch, I'm about to stomp you with these shoes.
I thought I told you to get a jump to Crazy D.
I did give it to Crazy D. You know D, you must have seen money in that. You know he used to produce those nudie DVDs.
Fuck you, thin man. I know you did it.
Don't let your mouth write a check, cause I will take it out on your ass. Damn, man. You serious?
I don't appreciate being roughed up by men. Or should I say, male bitches.
Yeah, you gonna work out.
And we look for young ladies like you to host them.
I look like somebody that can host your videos.
That's right. So go change, cause we ain't got all day.
Get off the house.
Really good, though. Don't do all that bullshit.
Crazy. What the hell? How you in my room?
Here's the thing about your movie, why I made a curator's pick of the Hollywood Fringe Festival. Community, heart.
As we kill the sound, as we come on in, as we do what we do on this special episode of TFR Podcast Live. That's hashtag TFR Podcast Live presents Observations by Crazy D with my special host, my sister, Tanya M. Congress. What's going on with you this morning?
Things are great. Before I move on, are you hearing me double?
No, I'm not. We're hearing you single.
Okay,
Right.
perfect. And there's no feedback. Because what's strange is I'm speaking through my microphone through the headset, but I'm hearing through my speakers.
Okay.
So if you're talking, I don't want you to hear yourself back because this is
Right.
not how I set this. So keep
Okay.
talking and see if you hear yourself back.
No, I don't hear myself at all. It's crystal clear.
Well, this is
I'll
perfect
take
because you don't have to, you're not having to go in. This is perfect. You're not having to go in and mute me yet, but you're talking to me though.
I'm talking to
So
you.
okay, we'll just leave. Okay, we'll leave it as is then.
Yes. So here we are, people. We are live on all platforms on hashtag TFR Podcast Live OB. We are streaming live on Periscope, on Vimeo, on FB, and on the Film Review Live channel. That's right, the Film Review Live channel. Make sure that you smash the like button, the share button, the subscribe button on the Film Review Live channel. The Film Review Live channel on YouTube. And we have the message, the chat box open. So we're going to be able to hear what you're talking about and be able to read what you're saying. And also, the phone lines are open at 213-943-3358. 213-943-3358, right? The topic for today, speculation. Who knew what, when, where, how, why, and who left their post when he or she or both were watching, looking out for the quote-unquote chatter intelligence on terrorists when it comes to 9/11, the World Trade, 19 years later? Still questions that are being asked, right? The question: who knew what, when, where, how, why, and who left their post when he or she or both were watching, looking out for the chatter, intelligence on terrorists? Did this stop you from flying? Did what happened during 9/11, September 11th, that Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, did that stop you from flying? Is this the largest story of the day, or has it gone down in our time as a celebration no more relevant than Pearl Harbor? So I'm going to ask this question to you first, Tanya. Did this stop you from flying? One. And two questions. Is this the largest story of today, of the day, or has it gone down in our time as a celebration no more relevant than Pearl Harbor? I'll let you have at it while I do some population here.
As far as if it stopped me from flying, at the time that it took place, I wasn't active in anything that was would have lent itself to me flying. But had it been that way, it wouldn't have hindered me. I still would have flew to wherever I needed to fly to. As to, is this the topic of the day? I believe it is. I mean, my morning started out with it because I have that, I'm plugged into that news site that I showed you yesterday, where the different reports come up out of the government when someone's speaking or they're doing something. So that's what I woke up to this morning, was a picture of the flag they had hanging over the Pentagon, over the side of the Pentagon, in commemoration of 9/11. Is it no more relevant today than Pearl Harbor? I wouldn't say that, because it happened, as far as I'm concerned, in my lifetime. Pearl Harbor didn't, but it was a point in history. This too was a point in history, but it was a point that in which I live. So for me, just knowing, I don't know anybody personally that was affected by 9/11 in the Twin Towers, but I did hear many stories, and I know of a pastor that had to perform quite a few funeral or homegoing services during that time, like 300 of them, I think he said, of his members. And that's pretty rough, because I think he had a couple of churches. He has two churches in the New York area. And so between those two churches, he had to eulogize 300 people. That's a lot. And that they had to take place in close periods of time because of how, the planning for homegoings go. And, so if he did all of those, that took a lot, So it impacted people on every level and everything. If they had friends or family that died in the Twin Towers, or if they were a person who a little birdie said something to them about not going to work that day, and they didn't go, they called in sick that day, or this one day they decided to stop and get a cup of coffee instead of going straight in, and the difference in that time made the difference in whether they would have been in the building or not. That is, that's something we can never forget. I can never forget being at work and people coming from the cafeteria where the TV was and saying this awful tragedy had taken place. And it was like you go in a time warp. Like it's like everything slows down. You're in a time warp, and it's unbelievable, because those Twin Towers were the financial foundation of our country. So it was more than just the Twin Towers in New York. It was our financial base. where, a lot of offices were and things like that. So it was meant to be a terroristic attack, or look like it anyway. We'll get on that later. It was meant to look like a terrorist attack, and it indeed looked like that. And, I had shared a story with you about what was happening at work, and we can get back to that when you're ready to get back to it.
Yeah. Let's talk about that story about what happened. It was one of your coworkers, and
Yeah.
his actions when it happened brought about suspicion. So let's talk about that real
Yes.
quick as we break through, because we're going to have a moment of silence for those who have passed before we start to put the rubber to the road. So let's talk about this.
The gentleman that I worked with was of French Arab descent, and you know, he his father was a dignitary. I'll just put it like that. So I'm not saying any names, but his father was a dignitary. So when it happened, he was in the cafeteria at the time, and another one of my coworkers. And when it happened, he went ballistic. He fell out on the floor crying and screaming. He was highly distraught and thrown off his game. And this guy, he was a rather cool individual, cool and humorous, quite humorous and sarcastic. So he was a pretty cool guy, but he lost his cool when that happened. And so they're in there speaking French, zuzu, zuzu, and she's trying to console him, and he's inconsolable at this point. I mean, he's all over the floor. His suit jacket then came up around his waist. He just, so that aroused suspicion because of the reaction. The reaction was strange. It was personal. It seemed to be personal. So once it was realized that he had this type of reaction to this event, they're like, whoa, this is hitting really close to home for him, obviously. So they wound up, and I think it was a good decision just to be safe. They wound up getting the authorities involved, investigate this individual and what his background was. That's how we found out who his dad was and all of that. So, that was as close to me as it got, was that I had a coworker who that was of great concern to him. I don't know if he thought his father may have been on one of those planes or what. I don't know if his father was flying that day. He didn't know. And so he was just very distraught and out of sorts. And so, that's what they did. They looked into him, but he wound up staying. Whatever it was they found, it wasn't serious enough for them to let him go or anything. He wound up staying with us until that job dissipated eventually.
That's funny because he seemed unconsolable, as if he was crying. It wasn't like what they had reported, and people say that it's not true or whatever, that it was a conspiracy theory. 213-943-3358, 213-943-3358, that people, that Arabs in New Jersey who could see the World Trade going down, they were yelling and happy. So himself crying, it would look like to me, or being upset or having a conniption fit, would mean that it was something more personal, like you said, but not something where he would have thought, or someone would think of him as being a terrorist. But I guess during that time you couldn't be too sure, because in the wake of it, as they got the total of how many people died in the World Trade, 2,977 died. It was September 11th, 2001. It was a Tuesday, and I'll never forget that, because my wife and I were waking up and we had turned on the news, and Brian Gumble had freshly gone over to CBS, because he used to be on NBC morning show, but he was on CBS, and when he moved over to CBS after retiring from NBC, quote unquote, we watched him all the time. So when we turned on the TV, the one building was already smoking. And then we saw the other plane go in as we were getting ready to leave. We were head off, going off to work. My wife was going to work, and I was going to stop over my parents' house like I did every morning beforehand, and then head up to the store from there. And I mean, that was what was on TV all day, all night. Just permeated the news. It just went on, and looking at Bush sitting there reading to some first or second graders, and he just sat there when he got the message. It was just the look on his face, and the camera zoomed in on his face. It's like the cameraman, whoever it was, knew that something had happened, or maybe he had got the word before the president got the word, and he just zoomed in on Bush 2's face, and he just sat there for a while, you know, and you really don't know. It's like, what were you thinking? You didn't automatically hop to action. You didn't say anything. And then after it was over, after the rubble happened and the smoke had cleared, and the different people who came there to help try to do a salvage mission of bodies and trying to save people if they were still alive, and all the people who then caught that lung disease from it, right? And not wearing a mask, not wearing the right protective gear, like all of the chemicals, and not only the jet fuel, but the chemicals that made the building, the iron, the drywall, all of that was up in the air, and people didn't think to wear a mask. Like, that's what you would call the cowboy. And then they needed to tell Bush to say something when he was on the megaphone, and they had to whisper to him to say something. Then he said, we were going to get the people who did this. And it took quite a few years later, you know, with another president to get the person, quote unquote, who did it. But it was Al-Qaeda. That's who they said. Remember, we don't even hear that name anymore. We don't even hear Al-Qaeda. We don't hear that anymore. It's like, wow, right? So the targets for that day were the World Trade, the Pentagon, the U.S. Capitol, and then the United Airlines 93 failed. They don't know exactly where it was going because it dropped into a field in Somerset, right? Pennsylvania, right? Injuries, non-fatal, 25,000. How many American blacks died in the World Trade Center that day? How many? 215. How many Hispanics died? 258. How many Caucasians? 2,066 died in the World Trade, right? And so it goes to show that the World Trade was it was like an economic base, like what you said, of the United States, or at least the terrorists who did what they did at least thought that it was, and we as Americans thought that it was. And so once they dropped it, and you find out that 215 American blacks were in there. Now, we don't know if some people didn't make it, they were running late, or something told them not to go. But you just look at the number of people working in there, and you look at the disparity right there in who had gainful employment. Just looking at the tragedy of the World Trade Center and the towers falling, and then the little building fell afterwards, and they said that was suspicious that it happened. But just looking at the disparities of the number of people of American black heritage that were in there, that it was such a small, It was such a small number, which means that this World Trade Center, that was the center of economics in New York City, that American blacks were shut out of that gainful employment. What are you going to say to that?
That's quite interesting when you look at the numbers, but look at the numbers and not to. My heart goes out continuously to the families who lost loved ones in that time, or if you managed to escape out of there or whatever, where you're involved on the level that you're involved. But when we consider the things that we talk about on our show concerning the plight of the American black in America, we have to look at that now. There it was. There once again, we were in an extreme minority in that place, and just so happens that that time around in ratio, it served to be a benefit that we were the minority in there. Not that nobody else's life wasn't equally as important. Don't, y'all messy folks and people who piece together videos and edit and do things like that. Don't do that here, okay? Not the right place to do it. But it speaks to something, and it's very tragic. Either way you look at it, loss of lives, escape, and not losing life, it's still tragic. The whole thing is tragic. And what really gets me is that it has been suggested, it's been speculated that was not an outside job but an inside job. And if that be the case, if that be true, that the disparity or the debased mindset of people who will put the lives of thousands of people in jeopardy in their own country in order to make a point or have a pissing contest with the next person is unfathomable, and it's wicked to the highest degree. It's wicked to the highest degree. And we're looking at, that's why when I look back at that point in history, of which I was here, I look at that point in history, and it's not too far-fetched to think that this whole COVID situation was landed the way it landed, just to come against one person in one country is responsible for a disease in all the world. Are you serious? So it's not far-fetched to think like that because of other things that have gone on here that were far-fetched to think about.
I mean, how could you, looking at that, just looking at the conspiracy side of it, is for people to do their research and to figure out, go find out what the facts are, and then you create your own mind state and get off the hamster wheel of the mindset that they have you walking and believing everything. It's unfathomable, like what my sister said, to have done this just to be able to go after someone in another country, to miss aim. Instead of going to Afghanistan, you go to Iraq because your father had words with Saddam Hussein during the Gulf War, and Saddam Hussein did some threatening. These are just some of the things that are out there. And so you kill an American treasure here. And then that's what I was alluding to when I said he just sat there and the camera person zoomed in on his face, on Bush 2's face. And he was just staring there and it was almost a look as if it actually happened. What are we gonna do now? That's the way it looked, right? And, and as all the information starts to roll out, you say, would they have given up and killed up Americans to how many again? 2,977 Americans just in the World Trade Center, not to mention the ones who died in United Airlines Flight 93, the people who were injured in the Pentagon and the United States Capitol. You know, they said that was a target, but as I remember in the reporting, that wasn't hit, or that would have been something, because the Capitol was the dome, right? And if that was hit, then people would have, we would have been hearing about that forever, because that would have killed up congressmen and senators and everything else. So what was going on? What was going on during this time here? Well, let's see. Let's look at the albums that came out during that time. Glitter by Mariah Carey came out, and it was considered the worst album of her career was Glitter. Actually, people should take another look at the movie, because the movie was actually good. It was actually it was pretty great, actually. It wasn't, she acted well. She had an all-star cast in it, and it was supposed to be her breakout, but at the same time, she was going through the nervous breakdown situations and things that slowed her career down. She was just getting out of Tommy Mottola. Remember this time in 2001? People forget what was happening during those times. Let's see what else was out. Fear, Love, and War, Killer Army, right? It did lackluster sales, but people who were into deep hip hop bought that record, right? And, you know, most people don't know who Killer Army is, so I'm not going to go into it now, because most people don't know who they are, because it was definitely a lackluster release. Halfway Tree by Damian Marley, Junior Gong. You know, that's Bob Marley's son. You know, Bob Marley keeps having children come out of the woodwork. We don't know. He was prolific in not only spreading his music, but in our opinion, spreading his seed. And so, you know, that's what he will live on for quite some time. And he has a nephew, not a nephew, but a great grandson that has the women swooning now when you see him perform. Then there was the album Ghetto Fabulous by Fabulous, right? It came out, it did pretty good. It was his freshman effort, and it came out, and people bought it and liked what Fabulous had to say. It was good, but there was no album that stood alongside this album. It came out, and it's so still prolific and so important to hip hop and to music in general today that it's been voted by Rolling Stone magazine. It's in the top 500 albums of all time. And that's Jay-Z's The Blueprint, right? Jay-Z's The Blueprint. Awesome. Arguably his best project to date. Jay-Z somewhat infamously released his album, The Blueprint, on September 11th, 2001. The soul samples transcended a brand new sound in hip hop given the time. The rapper had production from Kanye West, Just Blaze, and I can't read the other one because I got the letters over it. Oh, Timberland. How could I not say I got the letter? I got the logo over it, and I can barely read this. Despite the attention of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the album sold 420,000 copies in the first week. Part of the reason the LP became successful early was the Brooklyn MC's personal beef with Nas, which was showcased on the single The Takeover. The project, which is revered by many hip-hop heads, was named one of Rolling Stone's top albums of all time, right? Jay-Z,
Wow.
No Matter What. And I remember Busta Rhymes told a story about he was walking down the streets of New York and the towers fell, and the dust started rolling through the city, and he remembers he was running and he didn't think that he was going to be able to get away from the dust and the debris that was flying, and he saw a door, and he opened the door, and I think he said that it was him and someone else, and they ran into the door, and all of the white smoke and the dust passed by the door, and they were saved. That was the only reason why he was saved, because they saw the door and they went in, and just as they went in, that's when all the white plume, that spread ground-wise, came past there, and he was saved, or else he would have been in it. And MCs need their lung capacity, right? They need their lung capacity,
Right.
and people in general need their lung capacity. And for something like that to happen, it was devastating, and people felt for New York for that time. But what do you have to think about that, and about what was happening in New York to the people, and Jay-Z having the #1 album?
Oftentimes in period of history, there's more than one thing that takes place that brings to your remembrance that event and all that was going on, and it makes you take a closer examination at spiritual things. It makes you take a closer look at your own life, and it makes one grateful and thankful to have not been a part of that, yet you feel for the people who were a part of that, who lost their lives. But it's amazing. I wasn't paying attention to the music industry at that point in time. I hadn't even realized that Jay-Z's album had dropped. Now, I remember the Blueprint album. It was so popular that despite the fact that I wasn't even following hip hop at that time, I knew about it. I was as far away from that as whatever, but I knew about it. That's how popular the album was. But I had no idea that it had dropped the same day as the Twin Towers did. And so for him, I wonder how he feels about that. I wonder, what he thinks about on that day, and how that album was his best-selling album, but it was at such a pinnacle time in history. I wonder how he views that and how he remembers that. That would be interesting to know how he views that.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone has ever really asked. I think it's just something that went in the stride, and those are questions that get into deep. Because so many times I watch interviewers, and they do such surface level, superficial situations. Okay, people. So let's look at the conspiracy theories. Donald Rumsfeld. Remember Donald Rumsfeld? We hardly hear his name anymore, right? All of this is over the internet. We're not going to go through it, but these are different things. If you want to know, if you are a young person and you are doing a report on 9/11, then these are the different sites that you should go to. You can come back and take snapshots of this later, and then just research this for yourself and read up on it and make your decisions after you have all of the facts and watch all the documentaries, because this was something that was devastating. And like we said, we gave one idea of what people were thinking just by how Bush 2 was standing up there. And you know what's so funny about Bush 2? Now, Bush 2 is revered. All of a sudden, people forget that 2,977 people died just at the World Trade on his watch? Did people forget that there was a major terrorist attack on the land of the United States, not seen since the time of Pearl Harbor, right? The date that 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 what's going on? Okay. A date that will live in infamy, as Roosevelt said. Yeah, I'm breaking up and I'm getting a warning. I think, are we going and saying something that they don't want us to let out here? But anyway, people, not since Pearl Harbor.
Come on, man. Come on.
Not since Pearl Harbor has something like this happened. Have we forgotten now that Trump is in there? We haven't had any wars on our land. Matter of fact, have you noticed in these 4 years of Trump, we haven't had a terrorist attack? Matter of fact, the news media doesn't even talk about homegrown terrorism from those who are affected by the words of terrorist organizations because they are Arab or Ottoman Turk living in this country, and they haven't been indoctrinated anymore. So what's going on with that? So all of these different conspiracy situations are up for you to see. Judge, let us secretly destroy CIA black site evidence, right? Different things that you can come back and go through the show and take the snapshot of, and then, or just freeze frame us, just pause and check out what's going on. And then this one right here, I want to bring this one back up along with the last slide that we're going to show here. I call them slides. The one about the black box from the airplane is very interesting because the news media covered the black box from UA 93, but they never really told you what it said. So this one right here, black box cover-up story finally breaks out. 9/11 black box cover-up story finally breaks out. And then of course we have the cover-up, and look who's right at the top, but Condoleezza Rice. Condoleezza Rice. Remember Condoleezza Rice? And all that, and then the rices, even the rice within Obama's administration has caused some upheaval over time, and she might be linked to what the president says was happening with him and being illegally investigated. 45. Now we're just talking about truth here, right? We're talking about putting out facts, and the facts are out there, and all you have to do is just go research those facts for yourself and then come up with your own mind state. But yeah, so, that's the aspect of the conspiracy side of it. But right now we're going to give a moment of silence before we move on with the rest of the show. And so here we go. Moment of silence for those who passed away due to the terrorist attack on Tuesday, September 11th, 2011, which is known as 9/11. All right, so that was the moment of silence, right? Give it to the people, for the people who are no longer with us, who were victims of that attack, right? All right, people, so coming this Sunday, September 13th, is the episode 130 of hashtag TFR Podcast Live. Episode 130 of TFR Podcast Live. And what we're talking about is the truth on what is versus what the media shows you. Capone movie review, Insecure review, Little Fires everywhere. If you have not seen that show, Little Fires
Yes.
Everywhere, you have to watch that series, right? And we're going to be reviewing that and talking about that more and breaking down the pros and cons, what's good about it, what's not good about it, but why you should see it anyway, right? So now, we go from talking about terrorism, which we're going to also talk about this on Sunday, also more in depth. But these people are the faces of, in my opinion, homegrown terrorism. These seven, right? These seven people, look at their faces closely. Look at them. They dress in black. They wear the mask. They wear the helmets. They have the baseball bats. They are part of, allegedly, remember these are our opinions, but allegedly until they go to trial. But the media has picked this up because they were arrested at a New Panther Party protest for the murder of Mr. Prude. You know, Prude was the one who had a mental episode, and the police say he was on PCP. They always say that. I don't know what it is about people being on PCP. I know that LSD, PCP, whatever it is. I don't know. I didn't know that was still a drug of choice in 2020.
Right.
But they were at this, because this happened in Rochester, New York, and they were having a protest, and they were there, and they were basically, by what the media is reporting, anarchists. We've been talking about Antifa and the people saying hashtag BLM, Black Lives Matter, and do any of these people represent Black Lives Matter? Well, they may not by race or phenotype, but they sure are representing by being out there dressed in black masks, covering their faces. And what is interesting about these seven? Do you know, Tanya, what is interesting about these seven?
Are they claiming to be Black Lives Matter? Are they claiming that?
Well, you know that the Antifa has infiltrated. So whenever you see the whites walking around and saying Black Lives Matter, the Caucasians saying Black Lives Matter, they're either Antifa or Antifa infiltrated hashtag BLM by what the reports are saying. The reports are starting to come out. So these seven, so I'm going to give you one more chance. What is unique about these seven?
Let's see. Well, out of all those terms we went over this week, they're in there somewhere. They're in there. So are they Marxists? Are they considered Marxists? Those that study
Now that
benefits
is
of
what
communism?
the media. That is what the media said, that they are Marxists. But we just gave a definition of Marxism, and Marxism is nothing more than the study of capitalism and how it affects labor, affects productivity, basically society. And through that study, they say that you should move to communism. So them saying that they are Marxists on the news is just influencing the uninformed on what these definitions are. So you go back to episode 12, and matter of fact, watch all of our episodes because we have been dropping information. You went on just on episode 13, which is the transition on the memorial or commemoration of September 11th, right? 2020. But you go back and watch the show, we broke down all the definitions. We was able to piece it all together and make it so it's one cohesive whole as they were cutting us and 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 cutting us. They didn't want it. But so to be a Marxist is nothing but to be a person who studies moving into communism from capitalism. So one more time, what is unique about these people? We also talked about this. It was something that we alluded to in the show yesterday. What is unique about these 7?
You know, in between all of what we talked about, I don't know. I mean, all of it is becoming one big blur because it seems like through the terminologies, there's so much overlap. It's hard to say. I think that's the point. The overlap of the terminologies is so that you won't know exactly what they are, except for I know you got an answer for me, so let me hear it.
What makes these people so interesting and not unique to those who are out there talking about anarchy and the fall of America. They're chanting death to America out there, right? First of all, their names, when we're going to talk about this more on Sunday, their names lend them to being, their parents being immigrants, right? That's one thing. Being immigrants, maybe their first, second, or third immigrants to this country. And we've talked about that and how immigrants who have pale skin, who are categorized as Caucasian and white, and it's been going on as long as unions have been going on, and even before that, they bring in more population in. It will be categorized as white to offset the population of American blacks so that American blacks will not have the opportunities they should have to be gainfully employed, to advance to the highest levels in government, even to the top office as descendants of 1619 slavery and people who were here even before then, right? So again, because we're going to pull this out, this is a game. Every time we see this is going to be a game, but it's very serious. What is unique about these people? What is unique about these 7 terrorists? My opinion.
Black bloc.
They could be Black Bloc, but that's Philadelphia. They probably have their own name, and it's probably going to be brought out what they call themselves in upstate New York. But what else is unique about these 7 terrorists, in my opinion? What's unique about them?
Okay, so you said they could be Black Bloc, but Black Bloc is a Philadelphia organization. So you said what is unique about them? You know, I have my own opinion, which I'm sure is not tied to what you say. They all look like they got some mental challenges to me, but I know that's not the answer you're looking for.
Well, they probably do need, because they heard voices, in my opinion. They must have heard voices. Death to America, they are oppressing us. And I'm going to get to it. I'm coming to it. They could need FANAP, though. But what else is unique about them? What's your opinion? Let me hear your opinion before I lay this out.
I mean, they also, obviously they're youth. They're among the youth of America. That's obvious. And they are probably more than likely purporting to be a help organization that's helping the cause or helping America move on. And they're taking a radical way of doing it. More than likely, they're justifying why they're doing what they're doing as a help. Or would they be classified as Democrat as far as their affiliation,
Well, you
party
know,
affiliation?
that's to come out, right? That's to come out. Tell me, how many women are, how many females do you see on the, I mean, just an observation on that. How many females do you see on the 7 mugshots? How many out of the 7 are female?
I see 4 and a possible, like a spades game. 4 and a possible.
Which 4? Describe them.
Red hair, upper left corner, dark hair next to her. Actually, I see a haircut there. That's a possible. That may not be. They may be transgender or of that community, because now the second person I assume was a female, but I see a lineup up there at the top, so that could be a male. Then over here to the far right looks female, down to the bottom left looks female, and the one that's to the far right at the bottom was the one that I named my possible.
Okay. All right. So look, when I first saw these mugshots, the one that's down to the left, she's supposed to be a model. Does she look like a model? I mean, I'm just doing some observation here. My opinions. Does she look like a model to you? The one down to the left with the raised eyebrow doing the rock?
Yeah, if her name is Emily Rose.
Okay. So she's doing the rock, or is that how she drew her eyebrow? I don't know. The one on the right with the bandana, that is a woman. And I when I first looked at it, I thought it was a male. You know, I was looking at it. Do you know what's funny? Do you know what's funny about her features? Though, look at her features. Just observations. Just looking at her features. What's funny about the one with the bandana on to the right side? She's a female. She is a woman. They name the name. She's a woman. What about her is interesting about her features?
What's interesting is that the eyebrows are dark and the hair is obviously dyed blonde, so it's not a natural blonde. And it also looks by the eyebrows and the eyes that individual may be of Middle Eastern descent.
Very odd. So that means that people are able to, if they have pale skin. Now, we don't know. Her name sounds strange like that. I mean, not strange. Let me take that back. Reverse that. It sounds like it could be Middle Eastern, right? Which means that out of all of them, she could be put under the... But anyway, what else is funny about her features? You see her bushy eyebrows and her long nose, longer nose, and she has cheekbones, but she's just not smiling, looks like, and her lip. When you look at her, does she look like a famous MC that we know that happens to be American black? Just look around the eyebrows and the nose. You know, she could be I'm going to classify her as Caucasian, because most Middle Easterns and even some black Africans are considered Caucasian when they come here. They check the box of Caucasian and white to build numbers for the Caucasians, right? So I'm just going to say that she's Caucasian, but she will be the Caucasian version slightly.
I think it's meant to look Caucasian, but I see something else as far as nationality there. But it does look like somebody. I just can't think of the name. I can't hear you.
Say that again. You said that she looks like something, and she looks like something, but she kind of looks. Let me pull it so they can hear you.
No, what I said was because you were saying that you would classify her as Caucasian. I said, well, she definitely looks like another nationality to me, which is what I named. I didn't name the specific one out of that community. I did say that that's what that looks like to me, but also they do look like somebody familiar. I can't think of the name.
If you look at her eyes, her eye set, her eyebrows, her longer nose, and all she would need was a nose ring, she would look like Tupac Shakur. Just Caucasianly wise. Just Caucasian wise. See the
Okay.
bushy eyebrows, the
I was
eye
gonna say
set. You were gonna say that? You
Yep.
agree with that? Yeah, isn't that something? Now,
Yeah.
above her in the right side, she is a woman. Left, the woman in the red hair, of course, she's a woman, and the rest are supposed to be male. So 3 males, 4 females in this group of, in my opinion, anarchists who are Antifa leaning, if not labeled as Antifa yet, at a black rally trying to cause damage and upheaval to property. Now, what is very interesting about these people? What is interesting about these people is they are all. Are you ready for this? You need to lean forward for this so you can automatically respond. You need to lean forward. They are all upstate or like upstate New York, family wealthy.
That's not a surprise at all. Not a surprise at all. It's
Upstate
not.
New York, family wealthy. And when we first saw this report, and we alluded to it about a lot of the people who are doing this Antifa stuff, they're wearing masks so they can go back to their lily white existence without being caught. We alluded to it that they are wealthy Caucasians, or people who have been categorized as Caucasians, who live that certain lifestyle, that upstate New York rich lifestyle, or that California rich lifestyle, or that Texas rich lifestyle, or that Las Vegas rich lifestyle. Excuse me, let me go with states. Or that Nevada lifestyle, rich lifestyle, or anywhere else where there are rich people who are Caucasian. These are people, and we talked about the Patty Hearst syndrome. As are they going to be able to claim that they were indoctrinated and be able to go back to their lives like Patty Hearst? Remember Patty Hearst and the group, the anti-group, they were terrorists.
Simeonese Liberation Army.
Yeah.
Simeonese Liberation Army.
Say that again.
The Symbionese Liberation Army with Sin Q as the leader.
Okay, so look that up real quick and get a definition of what they were standing for, right? What did they stand for, this thing that Patty Hearst and went through? Remember they robbed the bank and then they captured them, and then she was able to say that I was indoctrinated by the movement. Are these 7, because they are well off, are they going to do time, or are they going to be like the college scandal where you get a slap on the wrist and you get no time? You get like 6 months, whereas a black woman American black woman trying to do good for her children who used a different address, they gave her 5 years. But in this scandal where they lied about what the kids did for extracurricular or sports activity to get a scholarship, and then half the kids didn't want to go, come to find out, as the story went, and they went through and they did this anyway, and they get slaps on the wrist. Some of them very prominent Hollywood star types, right? And the ones who probably are in there that are non-Caucasians, they probably got time, but they probably didn't put that in the media. But will these 7 see any jail time like Patty Hearst didn't see jail time? Will they see jail time, or will they be like Patty Hearst? And what was Patty Hearst involved in? Let's read what they stood for. What did they stand for?
Okay, so they were actually called the United Federated Forces of the Simeonese Liberation Army. And I just, before we go to that, let's talk about what Simeonese means. That word has a meaning. So, Simeonese means it is the Manifesto Simeonese Liberation Army. And wait a minute, I had the definition right here. Hold on. Of course, my computer is moving slow. But there's a word, the dictionary definition is it's a superlative of pertaining to the Simeonese Liberation Army, and it's according to the group's manifesto, taken from the words a body of dissimilar bodies and organisms living in deep and loving harmony. So it stands for a group of people living in deep and loving harmony. Cults would take that. Most cults then would be Simeonese. All right. So the Simeonese Liberation Army was an American left-wing organization active between 73 and 75 that considered itself a vanguard army. The group committed bank robberies, 2 murders, and other acts of violence. The SLA became internationally notorious for the kidnapping of heiress Patty Hearst, abducting the 19-year-old from Berkeley, California. Interest increased when Hearst, in audio tape messages delivered to and broadcast by regional news media, announced that she had joined the organization. Hearst later said the members of the terrorist group threatened to kill her, held her in close confinement, sexually assaulted her, and brainwashed her. Let me say a little bit about that, because I was a little girl when that came out, but I paid attention to that situation. Patty Hearst was an heiress of her father was a newspaper mogul or a media mogul at that time who ran several newspapers and things like that. So she was known to be rich. Now, when she says that the members of the terrorist group threatened to kill her, held her in close confinement, and sexually assaulted and brainwashed her, at some point, this became voluntary, but she developed Stockholm syndrome, where you fall in love with your captor. And so the head of the Simeonese Liberation Army, Sinkyu, he was called, she had a baby by him. She got pregnant by him. She had a baby by him. And so at some point, she had transitioned into being his woman and was traveling with him openly as his woman. So now that he's dead now, and a lot of the members are dead. So now you come out every time and make a little money. So now you coming out with your story, and you're saying it doesn't. I don't doubt that they threatened to kill her and held her in confinement, but after a while, you developed an affinity for that which you were in, and nothing makes you do that but you. I mean, you are not going to be brainwashed to like something you're in unless you beginning to like something you're in. You still, a person in prison don't like being in prison. They never develop a liking for being in prison. They just accept the fact that they're there, but they never liked it. So once you began to be on this person's arm, then that put another spin on it. But yeah, you will find that a lot with, now she was taken captive by them, but you will find a lot of these groups, cults, and militant groups, their members are from well-to-do families. It's like they don't have nothing else to do. That's why they have all that time to be out there doing all of that, wreaking all that havoc, because they don't have nothing to do. They don't have a concern to go to work and feed themselves or whatever, because they have money sitting around. So this is the reason why. So that's very common.
And remember, people, these are our observations and our opinions, right? My opinion and my observation on Patty Hearst. Remember, you have to go research and make your own mind state. Get off the hamster wheel and get off out the mindset where they have you walk around like drones and not question anything and go find out facts and make your own mind state about it. This is my opinion. These are opinions and observations. My opinions on Patty Hearst was, to me, as the media skeptics, the people who were skeptical about the whole story, I'm skeptical too. Did she get kidnapped, or did she get quote unquote kidnapped, right? And it was already in it. What was their goal? What was the goal of the Sudanese Sudanese? What was their goal for them to even go in there and rob a bank? What was their goal? What was the goal?
It says here in his manifesto, the Simeonese Liberation Army Declaration of Revolutionary War and Simeonese Program, down under Freeze, the name Simeonese is taken from the word symbiosis, and we define it as meaning a body of we already went over that. So the seven-headed cobra, De Vries was the SLA's only black member. Ooh. His seven-headed SLA Hydrolite Cobra symbol was based on the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Each head represented a principle of Swahili. Words from these 7 principles are umoja. They mean unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith.
Okay, pause.
The appearance of the symbol.
Pause. Wait a minute, pause. You mean to tell me that the media did not tell us that Patty Hearst was on the arm? Was he? Yes, he was an American black, because he was talking about Kwanzaa. He was thinking that one day they were going to, I bet you that this is what you're going to read, that one day they were going to get the money and they were going to go back over to Africa and liberate Africa and have their own city in Africa, like a lot of the people who are running away from what's happening here and talking about they're going to go to Africa. And I say, when you leaving? But anyway, look, that's just a little preface, little insert there. But look, the media made it seem as if it was a white organization because all they ever showed you were white people. I have never seen a documentary on this where they showed this black guy that was the head of it, that the 7 principles of it was based on Umoja, Amnanda, Summa Kamalia, Kwanzaa, right? So this is interesting. We are bringing facts that you can go research, people. Unbelievable. You have brought something that I did not know because the media never covered it as such, because it is Caucasian, and they didn't want you to know that she was laying with an American black man that had the 7-headed cobra that was based on Kwanzaa. So continue on. And she was brainwashed, and the big black monstrous buck had his hands all over me.
Now, listen to this. The political symbiosis De Vries describes means the unity of all left-wing struggles. All left-wing struggles, including feminists, anti-racist, anti-capitalist, and others. Now, what did we read all this week with these different, the different terminologies and the different meanings of the different words, all encompassed one or more of these words as part of their, part of their purpose. Feminism, anti-racism, anti-capitalism, and it says here, and others. So that would encompass everything else we've been talking about all week, right? So De Vries wanted all races, genders, and ages to fight together in a left-wing united front and live together peacefully. He wanted all races, genders, and ages to fight together in a left-wing united front and live together peacefully. Based on the principles of Kwanzaa.
on the principles of Kwanzaa. Keep going. We need to know everything. This is amazing. We are breaking news for a whole new generation that we never got, and that's why Google is your friend.
Now, the appearance of the symbol of the seven-headed cobra on SLA publications indicates that it was copied from the ancient Indian and Sri Lankan seven-headed naga. Carved stones depicting a seven-headed cobra are commonly found near the sluices of the ancient irrigation tanks in Sri Lanka and are believed to have been placed there as guardians of the water. The particular graphic of the seven-headed cobra used by the SLA may have been copied from an illustration of the Lost Continent of Mu by James Churchward. Let's see. And then it goes on to go further into, this particular article goes further into the kidnapping of Patty Hearst and the murder of a couple of its members and all of that.
Okay, so look, people. So we just found out that Patty Hearst was getting some, as Mick Jagger say, brown sugar. You make me feel so good. Anyway, people. So look. Why are we constantly on this repetitious hamster wheel? Why are we constantly on the hamster wheel? Why are we galloping on the hamster wheel? I'm using my hands because I'm not in there. Why are we on the hamster wheel, paddling on the hamster wheel? Why are we constantly seeing the same situation rising again and again and again? Why are we constantly seeing this happen? Why are we constantly on this same hamster wheel thinking that what's happening today in 2020 didn't happen in 1970, didn't happen in 1950, didn't happen in 1930, didn't happen in 1910, Why are we constantly on this hamster? This is information that is there, but the outlets and the media outlets do not tie together. But I bet you after this show, they will be tying this together. I'll give it about 2 to 3 weeks. They'll be bringing up the Sudanese and Mubanese amalgamation army with the seven-headed and saying it is kind of the same of what's going on with these 7 right here. Now, here's the next question about the 7. So we know that they are rich. They come from wealth. They're not rich. They come from wealthy families who set them up. All they have to do is go to college, get a degree, and then be a people who are, they never did anything to get the wealth, but the wealth will be an inheritance to them, and they can't in their mind rationalize, and they feel sorry for having wealth. That is a problem, people. If people are sorrowful about having wealth and feel that their people, their own people are doing, that's what Little Fires Everywhere is about. And we're going to be discussing this in this situation this Sunday on the Film Review, on the Film Review Live channel at 5:30. We're going to be discussing this because this is exactly what Little Fires Everywhere is about. So on our show this Sunday at 5:30 Pacific, right? 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern on the Film Review Live channel, we're going to be talking about this more in depth, breaking down the show and breaking down these 7 as the reports come out. Now, here's the question I'm going to ask you, Tanya. What is the chance that this arrest of these 7, because these organizations are loosely connected, but because a lot of the Caucasians that are in them are wealthy, they're able to travel and meet up, and they know who each other are before they put on the bandanas and the masks and the helmets and dress in all black and have the baseball bats and have the anti mace formulas that they put together. They have all this. What are the chances that this arrest of these 7, as they are interrogated and they are threatened with prison time, to get a deal, to make a deal to not do time, how many of them do you think are going to roll and tell organizational secrets and organizers in the different cities, especially in Portland and Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, and in Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia, and also the ones that are organizing in upstate New York and all around the United States and maybe around the globe, being that this anarchist, anti-racist, anti-chauvinist, anti-etc., etc., have ties to European organizations. What is the odds that this arrest will bring an end to what's happening as far as the, not protest, but anarchy for this time, like it always happens every time?
I would think in this case the chances are slim and none, because number one, they are not going to serve any long periods of time for anything. They're going to have the best lawyers to get them off from different things, and whatever they think the end goal is or the benefit of being part of it, they're going to just stick with that, because there's a certain amount of protection that they're still going to have, or a certain amount of what do you call when you are it's the word for being, you have your
immunity.
They have a certain immunity to a certain degree, so they're not worried about it. In fact, for them, it's a badge of honor or some kind of medal to go and get a record. It's not gonna, if you're already wealthy, you already from wealth, and that's the end goal of going to college and getting education and stuff like that, is to be in the best financial position you can be in for your life and the life of your loved ones. They already got that, and it's going to be inherited and handed down to them, so they cool with that. So the chances of it ending just with these 7, I don't think is very big chance.
I think that the henchman is the one down in the right corner. The one that said they have some features like Tupac. Not quite, but Caucasian. It's looks kind of Lebanese or whatnot,
Yeah. So
yeah,
exactly.
The henchman is her, because she, as someone who they will say is a terrorist because of her background, I think that beans are going to spill. Remember that game, Boston Baked Beans, or what was that? The bean game where they had the little plate and they had the bowl.
Don't spill the bean. Don't spill the bean.
Wait a minute, hold up.
It was called Don't Spill the Bean.
That's right. Don't spill the beans. And it had a little plate. And it had and they had the beans in it, right? And you would drop the bean, and that was the counterweight, because the bowl or a barrel or whatever it was hollow, and the counterweight was the plate that went on top. And you would drop the beans and try to keep the bowl or the pot from turning over. She is the bean that's gonna topple the pot. Why do we constantly go through the same thing over and over again? It's because of the fact that the history books are not written correctly. That's what it is. The history books are to hold secrets. Like, I didn't know that it was a 7-headed snake created by a black man that Patty Hearst was basically, in my opinion, dating. And they tried to rob a bank, and they tried to get, I'm sure that it had to do with something about returning to Africa and being part of the African diet. I'm almost sure that. But the 7 heads had to do with principles of Kwanzaa. Which then I'm sure the authorities went and investigated the guy who created Kwanzaa. Kajufu, I think that's his name. I believe it's a catch, analyze, and shoot. Why are we constantly going through the same things? And here you are. We were talking about this when we were showing what was happening at the city hall or the courthouse when they wanted to see the mayor. And the black people pushed through, and the Negro whisperers were sitting back, pretty much filming or in the scene, observing and not making any moves. The American blacks get arrested, and the others are sitting back who are non-black are sitting back talking this yang, and most of them come from affluent families. What are we doing? This even proves even more what we've been talking about. What we've been talking about for the last few episodes, which is American blacks need to sit this out, because you don't know where these Caucasians or people who are classified as Caucasians to build numbers for Caucasians need to do the research on what I'm talking about that. You don't know where they're coming from. You're coming from a situation where you may be middle class, but you make maybe $60,000 a year. But do you know that real middle class by Ryan, the House, when he was the Speaker of the House, is actually $450,000? That's middle class. What is everything else? Okay.
Poor.
So you're looking at the people, and they're coming around you, and they're doing this, but these are wealthy, rich and wealthy, beyond American Caucasian middle class. Out there doing this, you come from impoverished situation to American black middle class, and you're sitting up with them, and they know to stand back. Now they got arrested. You know, they obviously, remember how we were talking about how Antifa said, stay together, run, find an alley, run. They gave their tactics and their strategy, right? Obviously, this failed for them, and they got caught up. Why would you be around that? Why would you, as an American black, be around that? Why would you, as an American black, vote for someone who was responsible for sending a lot of your family members away, a lot of your friends away during the 80s and the 90s, 2000s, 2010s. We're in 2020 now. We have to become smarter. Hashtag TFR Podcast Live OB Observations. We drop the information and the information that you need to know to build your knowledge. What is education about? Education is a set, organized space that informs you so that your natural gifts can then spring forth, and not your natural intellect, your natural abilities, your natural creativity can come forth and bring something that is productive for your people in the society that you're in. What are you doing following Patty Hearst? Like on Sunday, we're going to name all these names of all these people right here and break down what they were doing, right? It's all over the media, right? It broke last night. It broke actually 2 days ago, but then they broke last night. Not only the redhead, but the other 6 were caught. they're gonna start talking, yo. I mean, they're gonna be quiet for a minute, but they're gonna start talking, yo, because they put the screws to them because they have destroyed the state. You understand? And anarchists, as we tell you about the definitions, they are about destroying and seeing the state fall. Like, out of those 7, how many of them are not only anarchists, but accelerationists? And you're hanging around them, American blacks, instead of being out the way. Just being out the way. Just be observers. Have your camera there. Be out the way. We're just observing. We're not in the fight.
This is
Go ahead.
See, been something that's always been a problem historically with our people. You're always allowing yourself to be sold on something. You know, when they were in their planning stages, there's always a plan to have some blacks on board for one reason or another, whether that be to be a scapegoat or whether that is to be the distraction or whether that is to be the one that ultimately takes the blame for everything, whether that be the muscle, whether that be the brains, whether that be, but the one weakness is they allow themselves to be sold on your legitimacy or your concern and your heart to help, your heart to be involved, your heart to be, oh, I feel your pain, we want to be involved, we want to get involved. And you look at these people, you know their background, you know they got money, you think that is going to bring that your way. That is the selling point. And that has always been a problem. Being for sale. Stop being sold on stuff. Stop being for sale. Stop having a price tag. Stop doing that. And then coming on board with people. And so where you think that you are doing something by bringing them to you, they have brought you to them. And so here it is, at the end of the day, who's going to get the biggest sentence? Well, your people that you voted in office is going to make sure you get the longest sentence and the most thorough punishment to the extent of the law is what you're going to get while you've aligned yourself with them. And that's the problem. Stop it. We have to, history has proven, and you know, for those legitimate Caucasians who were really in like in the 60s fighting March with King and things like that, who were legitimate and real about it, you know, God bless y'all. But at this point, it is a clear point of demarcation, a clear point of division. Not that it has to be a point of war between us as races. However, there are points of demarcation that are clear, and this is a fight that we have to fight ourselves for our own cause and our own purpose, and we can't get involved in your fight. Your fight was generated from another foundation. It was generated from another foundation, so we can't get involved in your fight. Your fight is your fight. Our fight is our fight.
I would agree that our fight is our fight, right? And see, that's what it is. American black people have to learn to love one another. That's what it is. American black person could be saying the same thing that these 7 Caucasians are saying, but they're saying it to make America better, right? Not talking about death to America, and they're not first, second, third, maybe 5th generation here, and they don't really have any clamp or any predestined determination because of their link to the United States. Their predestined destiny has to do with where their people came from in such a little time compared to us being here for 401 years, or going back even further, the people that were here that were amalgamated and then called colored. We've talked about that in nauseum, but I just have to reference it. We have to, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, my observations on it. We have to learn to love each other and move forward in our organizations about our purpose, and we have to not be so quick to hear something from Caucasians say, "Oh, you finally understand what we're doing." All you have to do is just research and find out that this has already happened. This has already happened. This happened in the 2000s. It happened in the 90s. It happened in the 80s. It happened in the 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, 10s, 1800s, 1700s. It's happened already. All you have to do is do the research, and you realize that you have to get off the hamster wheel and quit doing the same things. I'm gonna paddle. Oh, here comes these Caucasians. They love what I'm saying, and so I'm going to jump with them, or people who are classified as Caucasians. And why are they classified as Caucasians? Because they wanted the Caucasian people who are in government who believe it want to outnumber the American blacks, so American blacks could never ascend to the highest offices in the land. But you're going to still go with them, and then they will go back. Even these 7, some of this is going to fall, and it's going to be able to be infiltrated because of the 7, right? But they're going to be able to go back to their lives for the most part, except for the one in the right-hand corner, I think is my opinion. I think is Lebanese. We're going to do the names on Sunday, but I think that she's going to get the brunt. She's the bean. Don't spill the beans. They're going to spill the beans.
That one the one above her looks like she got some Asian in her.
Oh, you saying that she's a Hapa?
The one that's up above that one, she looks like she has Asian blood.
Right. So these people, not to mention that I wouldn't follow them because, in my opinion, they look strange. There's some strange looking people. Like, anybody who thought that the model, the one in the left-hand corner, was a model? I mean, to me, these are some strange looking people.
She looks like a lot of things, but a model ain't one of them. She looks like a lot of things that I can name, but a model does not fall in that list. Model does not fall in that list. But it was something that you said just a second ago about, them returning back to, once this stuff is over for them, they can go back to their money. They can redhead, because she looks like it's probably, her hair is naturally dark. She's going to dye her hair back to a brunette, and everybody's going to, second child is going to cut his hair. And so you won't be able to not tell who he is. The third one might stay looking the same, like James Dean. And then you got the one in the bottom in the middle. He's going to go head on, and his name is probably Miles or Lars, and he's going to go on and get a regular cut and put on a business suit, and he's going to go to corporate America, and he's going to take over Daddy's family business.
Wait. The dude's name is something like that, too. That's what I'm saying. You giving him a little too much credit to look like James Dean. Like, James Dean wasn't much, in my opinion. But to give him James Dean, an actor, nah, he could never be that. Look at that. Look, he got, in my opinion, an alien head. He's got that big round head and that thin
Baby
chin.
New Year. Baby New Year then. Baby New Year. Yeah, grab those ears. But
go ahead.
No, but the one in the bottom middle, I've never been so sure about that in my life. That's his natural hair color. He's gonna cut it. He's gonna make it look real corporate. He's gonna throw on that suit and tie, and he's going to be sitting in the boardroom taking over Daddy's family business, and he looks like his name is Lars or Miles, some kind of name like that.
Oh, listen, people. So look, go back and watch this again, episode 13. Go all the way back to episode 1. We have them linked up in on the Crazy on Dion page. They're linked all together. You can go click there and binge watch. We drop a lot of information on this show. Hashtag TFR Podcast Live presents Observations by Crazy D with my special guest host, Tanya M. Congress, right? Make sure that you smash the follow button on our pages, the follow button on the Film Review, Movies, Music, Culture, Politics, Society podcast page on FB. Crazy on Dion, Tanya M. Congress. Make sure you go over to the Film Review Life channel and smash the subscribe button. Share this video, like this video. Let your people know that the information is being disseminated out there to you. As my producer, my wife says, my sister and I are like the people who bring you the news that you can use 5 days a week leading into TFR Podcast Live. Hashtag TFR Podcast Live on Sundays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Pacific. No, excuse me. 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on the Film Review Live channel. Smash that subscribe button because we drop information about film, how movies, music, culture are a reflection of the society and the politics of the day, and how that music and movies represent that culture, right? And then come watch us Monday through Friday on the various platforms: Periscope, Vimeo, FB, and the Film Review Live channel. Monday through Friday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Hashtag TFR Podcast Live OB. That's observations, right? Because like my producer said, we bring you the information 5 days a week. We cut through all of the noise. You have to be able to cut through the noise, like Chuck D's voice used to be able to cut through the noise, the cacophony that made Public Enemy. His voice was able to cut through the cacophony. Two voices cut through the cacophony of the news that is put across to you by media. It's not even news, it's just media. Whatever gets the dollar is what they're about. But we're going to bring you the information that you can use so that you will be informed and you can go and organize. Well, not even organize. First, you need to go and make your mind state and get off the hamster wheel and get out of that mindset. If anyone is training you on how to be a good Negro, you tell them that's not what education is about. Education is an organized space that informs you, and then your natural gifts, your natural abilities, your natural talents are then able to come forth. That's what education is about, real education. And sometimes education is not even in the classroom, though in this society you do need 1 through 12 and some college. But since Trump got in, he went back to vocation as being number one. So that means if you get vocation training, then you will be able to do work, because he's focusing on infrastructure and rebuilding America in the next 4 years. All right, that's just facts. That's just facts. That's not pro anything. That's just facts. That's just what it is. 213-943-3358. I see that the Antifa, the anti-fascists, are afraid to call in because we dropped all this information. We've exposed what it is. We need to quit being on the hamster wheel. These are failed thoughts that every time they are foiled, every single time. And I believe truly, my opinion, that these are opinions of people who need to be on fan app. When you have money and you have power, you have prestige, you have position in society. Your position in society, if you want to do something better, push to have American blacks pushed into the highest levels of the highest offices in the land without strings attached. You want to do that? Use your money that way instead of using your money and influence to travel into different cities to destroy infrastructure and try to collapse the state like the racists and the people who you feel are against what you're talking about, which is free to people who are accelerationists. You're no different than the accelerationists with your tactics because they want the state to fall too.
The mere fact that they go out with masks on, you know me, jellyback is my favorite word. The mere fact that they go out with masks on and you're hiding your faces, meaning that means you're not really standing behind the cause. You don't want to be identified as a person who's standing for a cause. Why wouldn't you want to be identified? You know, and then you're going to, far as the money is concerned, that is, I mean, you're traveling around and you're doing your thing, but you really have no stake in it when you don't show your face. So they caught you. When they catch you, they take the mask off. So then everybody knows who you are at this point. Here's the pictures with everybody's faces open and exposed. So my thing is, I find this to be common, and I'm not making a blanket statement, but this is an observation just based on what I've looked at over these 54 years. I look at the majority of people who get involved, and I said it earlier, in cults and these militant groups from the Caucasian community. Caucasian groups are people that come from places of money, the ones that are able to travel around, either places of affluence, or they're on the other opposite end of the extreme, where they may be from an extremely poor class of Caucasian people. But these that are doing what they're doing, it's like you're trying to establish some type of significance in life, because you may have had narcissistic parents. See, when he mentioned FANAPT, needing to have FANAPT, we make jokes about that drug, but ever since I've seen that, I'm like, this is real. This is more real and more common than any of us may have thought of before we seen that commercial. And so a lot of these people have had narcissistic parents, or parents that were kind of psycho, in the sense, all psychopathy is not butchering up people and cutting people like in the horror movies. Psychopathy is having an extreme, non-caring, and damaging, emotionally damaging type behavior towards one person or another group of people. And so some of these people are offspring of those type of parents. So they were not considered significant or holding of any place of importance. They were just people that could be claimed on the taxes, and most of the time were a nuisance in their home environment. So they wanted to establish some type of significance. They all have a way of finding each other. It's easy with online platforms now. They all had a way of finding each other. So now they're out here destroying stuff. And the only thing they're saying is for one cause, but the only thing they're expressing is their anger and their feelings towards their parents, or towards people like their parents. So they're out there getting it off like that. And then the same parents that they are expressing and sending a message to are the same parents' money that's going to get them off from those things. But you'll find that a lot. And many of them, they'll serve 18 months, 12 months, something like that, because it's going to be deemed that it wasn't all that serious what they did because they have the right color, right? And then they're going to go, some of them are going to go back, to their regular lives, running daddy's company, or they inherit the company. Some of them are going to go back to doing experimental drugs or recreational drugs and stuff that they were doing. And some are just going to fade off into obscurity. But right now, they have a name. They have a name that they've established for themselves that is not tied to their mom and dad's name. They've established their own way, right? And so a lot of times that's what this is about. This is not about fighting a cause that you're going to stand. You're doing it with a mask. You're not standing with nothing. I'm not going to stand with nobody behind no mask. There's no way. I'm going to go stand with you. You got a mask on. I'm not masking anything at any time, because whatever I choose to do, I'm going to do out in the open, and you're going to know I'm doing it. This mask stuff, it's ridiculous, and it's non-committed. That automatically, when he said that the pebble, the beam there, I think the one above her is a beam too. When you mention that is so true, because at the end of the day, you were standing with masks on. You're going to fold like a piece of paper. You're going to fold, no foundation, no strength, jelly back.
That's right. Yeah, look. People, smash that Cash App, $TFR Podcast Live. $TFR Podcast Live. Drop a few dollars on there. You like the information that we're putting across to you. Make sure that you smash that Cash App. $TFR Podcast Live. Make sure that you go to the Film Review Life channel. The Film Review Life channel on YouTube, and press that subscribe button. Make sure you share and like the videos. Leave your comments. We will read your comments over air, right? Look, people. 9/11, the World Trade. 19 years later, we're not talking about terrorism outside of the United States coming to the United States. In our opinion, is terrorism, homegrown terrorism inside the United States, being perpetuated on the infrastructure of the United States, brought by groups who are, in our opinion, misled, anarchists, who are doing the same things that the white supremacist, white nationalist groups are doing to bring about accelerationism, the collapse of the state to make a ethno-state. And either way, the anarchists or the white nationalists, when you look at it, where do American blacks stand in that? And why would you be a part of that? Why would you be a part of voting for a party that is allowing in Democrat-run cities to allow the infrastructure to be destroyed, thinking that it will help them win an election? They have created a monster that will not shut off, because the monster is anarchism. And anarchism is about collapsing the state, no matter what party is in. They've made a bargain with devils, the Democrats have, and with Dixies. And we have to, as black people, have to sit this one out and let them fight this civil war out for themselves and find out who wins. And then we can begin to politic to place ourselves at the top influence in the top offices of the land, right? Top positioning in the land. Not just the help, but the ones making the decisions, right? So we have to understand this and see what we're seeing, what we're doing, and what we will not be aligned with, because it just doesn't make any sense. Either side is not for us, and we're standing in the middle. And when we start talking about reparations, I can tell you those anarchists are saying, well, we're collapsing the state, so the state won't be here. The white nationalists are saying we're collapsing the state through accelerationism, so the state's not going to be here, and you don't need to have it anyway. And the anarchists say, yeah, because we were doing it so everybody could be together. So you don't deserve it. And we're going to go back and have our lives, and you having and being established and put on the place you're supposed to be kind of impedes on our lives. So you got the quote unquote, as my sister said, I'm going to call it the poor white trash or white nationalists, and the rich whites are anarchists. And what are you? You're in the middle. Where are you? You're an egalitarianist, American black. Well, let's be egalitarianists for each other. Let's make our situation American black and egalitarianists for each other. We got 10 minutes. Close out.
I was trying to get back to Facebook. Applauds to you for this week. You have really shown your behinds. Whoever is running it behind the scenes or whatever, you are a classic. You are in rare form. This is applause to you. You've done a show this week, because I'm trying to scroll down my timeline, and the very post that we were talking about, I can't get to it. It's stuck there. It's just spinning in a circle, and it's the next thing I need to get to, and I can't get to it, but that's okay. So I had posted a post about us sitting out on this election, and I had some various responses, and from one point of view, or from one particular point of view, I can understand the response, because the response is, in essence, saying we have to be responsible as Black Americans and go out and do what our predecessors died for, and go out and vote and cast our vote. So, not in no consideration of anything that you get off of these shows, if you didn't have this information to refer back to, I could understand that comment. So, and I don't think that many of them have tuned into the broadcast, so I could understand their point of view. And I respect everybody's point of view. However, sitting out this vote is not just about sitting out this vote. It's about everything else that we've been talking about with regards to the white nationalists and the anarchists, and where we fall in the middle. Let's talk about immigration and all of this stuff that is relative to democratic thought, and how we stand in the midst of that. Now, why should we? The same reason why we shouldn't have had part in the first Revolutionary War, we shouldn't have part in this Revolutionary War, or this war, Civil War. This Civil War, we shouldn't have had part in the first Civil War. So, because why? We stood to gain nothing from the first one. So what they got with us, though, is they got that manpower. They got that intestinal fortitude. They got that mind power. They got that muscle by having us on the front lines with them. However, when it was all said and done, we had gained nothing by having participated in that war. That was their war between North and South. That was their war. Having slaves and not having slaves. Trying to keep slavery and abolish slavery. That was their war. So here we are again with the great goulash of crap. that's staring us in the face. And we're standing there with a bowl and a fork asking you to spoon some of the goulash in our bowl so we have something to eat. We want a handout. You're not going to get it continuing to do the same thing. You know, God bless y'all. We need to unify and vote and then bring it down to our local officials. Well, how has that worked out for us so far? How has that been working? And you're saying stay in that mindset. You're saying let's try this one more time and see if we can get something different. That sounds like we need FANAP. I am not going to participate if I had to stand by myself and not do it. And even if you didn't think it was going to come a big deal, you stood by yourself, nothing happened. No, I stand by myself and I can look in the mirror and know that I contributed towards something that was going to be more effective than what y'all doing. You're going to vote. You're going to go back and you're going to sit there and twiddle your thumbs and play with your lips like we need some FANAP, and you're going to wish that they are going to do something. Well, they're going to do something this time. Oh, how much more grateful are they going to be this time than they were 4 years ago, and 8 years ago, and 16 years ago? How much more grateful? You think it's going to change for one reason? What incentive do they have to change? Your vote is not an incentive, or haven't you noticed? I'm done. I can't.
Hashtag TFR Podcast Live OB. Put that in Google. All of the episodes come up. You can watch or listen on your favorite podcast provider. And type in on another search in Google, hashtag TFR Podcast Live, and listen to all of the episodes. Binge watch the episodes or listen to them on your favorite podcast provider. We bring information, and information brings about strength and power of your mind, because we are about education. Education is the organized space that brings about information that allows the person to bring forth their gifts, their talents, and their ability to organize, mobilize, and organize for American Black people. Let's be egalitarian. Look it up. Egalitarian for American Blacks. For us. For us. Because I could tell you, like we said earlier in the week, Martin Luther King did not die for this. Malcolm did not die for this. Medgar Evers did not die for this. Thurgood Marshall did not fight and get on and be placed on the Supreme Court for this. All of the great American Black leadership that did not sell themselves, did not live, exist, and die for what we see happening in the streets right now, that we unwittingly place ourselves in as American Black people. None of those people died for the right to vote. They died because some white supremacists, nationalists, and unfortunately people, anarchists that were white, did not want to see American Blacks advance to the highest levels of American existence and life. Unfortunate. And if you research and just look at his story and how it applies to our story, you will see that the anarchists sell you out. The white nationalists shake hands with the white anarchists to sell American blacks out. Smash that hashtag TFR Podcast Live and hashtag TFR Podcast Live OB on the Film Review Live channel. Smash that subscribe button. Share these. Go over to Cash App, $ TFR Podcast Live, $ TFR Podcast Live, and drop a few dollars on it because we're bringing you the information. Unadulterated, and we let you decide. Create your mind state and get out of that mindset of a hamster wheel. If I follow, if I'm obedient, I'm doing, they're going to appreciate me. No, they're not. Too much history, his story, too much his story, too much our story. Rolling in the Mississippi, in the M-I, crooked letter I, crooked letter I, humpback I. Too much history in the Missouri River. Too much history in the Great Lakes. Too much history in the Atlantic. Too much history in the Gulf of Mexico. Too much history in the Pacific. We already know what it is. So people, this has been another great week of hashtag TFR Podcast Live OB. Want to give salute to my co-host, Tanya M. Congress, for doing what she do, bringing it on through. We dropped some information on you. Episode 13. This is transition. 13. The number 13 is transition. Number 7. 7 of them. They doing something. They trying to do something like some Islamic stuff, right? We'll talk about that in the following weeks. And we are out. We will see you next Monday.
Here's something about your movie, why I made a curator's pick of the Hollywood Fringe Community, heart, 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 heart.